This is the Bonus Section Podcast, episode number 57. Is motivation a myth? Are you the type of person that knows you were meant for something greater in this lifetime, and somewhere inside of you, there's just this bigger version of yourself trying to break through? But in spite of all your self-development, you just can't seem to find the way up there. Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Bonus Section and the host of this podcast, and a person just like you trying to learn how to live the most fulfilling life possible. Now, to help you take immediate action to get moving in a better direction, we take all the notes from each episode and we post them at freethinkingtools.com. That's freethinkingtools.com. That way you have some notes and you can start to think a little bit more for yourself and start to chart a real plan for what you really want out of life. All right, let's get started. Is motivation a myth? Well, isn't this podcast motivational? Isn't it inspirational? Well, maybe that's all a big myth if we don't consider it correctly. So let's start off with this. And the reason I say this today is because when I'm listening, and in this case it was a business context, somebody was saying that. I'm saying motivation is just a myth, and it was a powerful statement, and it always makes me go back to the base. What is motivation? So right before the podcast, I went in onto Google and I just looked up motivation meaning. And the meaning that I pulled was the reason or reasons for acting a particular way. Well, that's interesting because when we think about motivation, where does that reason come from? And I'll get into this a little bit deeper. A reason. What is a reason, right? Always that series of asking questions. Be inquisitive because it takes you in a very simple, easily accessible way to figure out how life really works. But the reasons for acting a particular way. So, that really begs the question, well, where does the reason come from? Somebody give it to us? Is it on board in our brains already, our subconscious? Were we programmed that way to begin with? So we think about the great motivational speakers of our times, those people that get up there and they rouse us and they motivate us, supposedly. But it all seems to be fleeting. And so maybe when I heard this, to a certain extent, that is true. You've probably been somewhere where somebody said, you can do it, and they got up on a stage, or they patted you on the back, or it was a coach, or somebody like that, and you got inspired to a certain extent. That's the second process here, too, or part of this I'll talk about. But they motivated you. And then all of a sudden, within a short period of time, it atrophied, and it was gone. It was almost like a short-term drug that you took, and the high is gone. So motivation is ineffective. So that led towards a dive into what the person said, but you got to inspire them. Oh, wait a minute. Aren't they pretty similar? So I looked that up. Inspiration, a little bit more sophisticated in its meaning. The process. That's interesting to me. The process of being mentally stimulated to do something. Well, that's pretty big. I like that word even better. And I didn't realize that the definition was that versus motivation. Motivation being the reason, and then inspiration being the process of being mentally stimulated to do something. So that's interesting too. But again, it begs the question, is this all externally driven by something or someone or circumstances, or is it internally inside of us? And so I'm moving pretty quickly through this, but I'll indulge a little bit more here. Then that led me to say why. So I had motivation, looked that up, inspiration, and then why was more the concept. Why does any of this matter? Why does the discussion about motivation and inspiration matter? Because it starts to make you think about what's important. We hear reasons, right? Process, to do something. It's this action thing. So again, we are these animalistic brains to begin with, and we take action steps, obviously, to survive. But to go beyond that, the words motivation and inspired, sure, I guess I'm motivated to get up off my butt if I'm about to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, and off I go. And I'm inspired mentally to survive every day that I go out. That's a very animalistic base for motivation and inspiration as they relate to the animal brain. But we don't think of them, most likely we don't. When we're trying to make for a better life, a more interesting life, these are bigger words. When you're motivated to move out towards this goal, see, that's what goals really become a big part of this, right? The goal word. And that's that thing out there. That's that target, a worthy goal. It's a very powerful way to live more life, to think bigger, to have big goals that are still achievable. And the way that you find out if a goal is achievable, has anybody else ever achieved it? And then there are things beyond that. We see people flying into space for fun right now. So nobody done that before on an individualistic basis, but certainly had been done before by NASA. By the Russians, etc. On and on I go. I'm not going to play space expert here, but you get the point. We've been to space before, but now individuals are doing it with their own money. Private people. So if we know that somebody can do it or the technology is there, and maybe somebody just has to be the one that believes that that goal can be them, why not them? And they put it together. So there are reasons to be first to space. There's the process of being mentally stimulated to do that, but it comes down to why. So I wrote down here, why? Does doing the thing even matter to you? See, that's what makes this, we bring it back to us, to you, to me, individualistically. There has to be a why that even matters to you. I mean, do I think it would be cool to go to space and see the curvature of the Earth and come back down and everybody pats you in the back for going up there? Sure, but I mean, I don't wake up every day with a why that matters to me. I like it down here on Earth, right? I like a lot of the things that are happening. So I wouldn't be motivated or inspired to do that because the why is not there. By the way, the application of this is very much so applicable to anybody. Let's take kids that are growing up through high school and into college. Why do you want to go to college in the first place, for example? Why is that a goal? And have you ever really looked at what that school offers you? Or are you just trying to get into a school with a label, a geography, a location, or because somebody told you had to go to school? By the way, I'm a huge believer still in formal education. I'm not one of these guys that said, oh, you don't need to go to college. I believe that you should be educating yourself the rest of your life. And the younger you are, the more formally you need that help. I'm a big proponent. I have 5 kids. I believe they all should go as far as they should academically as they're doing things in real life that matter. So in other words, don't go to a school because it has a brand or a name. You better check the curriculum and make sure it lands you where you think you would like to be. It sets you up for that. But the why you going to school for that thing matters. So for example, with my kids, let me relate it to them. I have one daughter who you could tell she wanted to be an actress from, I think, the time she was 2. I joke she could cry crocodile tears on cue at 2 years old. She called herself, she had a title for herself, Jennifer Catherine Rose Princess. She made up the whole name. So there was an actress in there. And so as time went on, you could see why that expression, it mattered to her. She wanted to express that in theater in high school, and then clearly wanted to continue that on and have this career, this goal to be out there, to be a professional actress, writer also, but to be that person. So the schools that she looked at and focused on offered that in geographies where that matters and the opportunities were there. So it mattered. So the why, now you go back up and you look at this motivation, and there are reasons. So as her father, guide, coach, you can go in and say, look, the reason for going to these schools is because this why matters to you. Don't let somebody crap on your dream. And then believe me, there are a lot of people, when you say something like you want to be an actress, well, you know, why don't you become a nurse? Why don't you become a school teacher? It's just, you know, safer and certain. Well, that's what matters to them. Safety and certainty. But when you have this big creative that you've had on board since you were a kid, that needs expression. So your motivation and reason for acting in this way, in other words, getting the portfolio together. See, that's motivating because the why is out there. I want to become this person. And look, this is a really difficult thing when you're young because you need a support cast, typically, that supports you. A lot of people will beat the why right out of you. And I don't mean in a harmful way. They just beat it out of you mentally. That's what I'm referring to, by the way, not physically. Why can get beaten out of us by people that are scared of our dreams, our why. Our why matters to us. It is us, by the way. Your why is you. The way you think about that thing that you really want, that really matters to you. And everybody has something a little bit differently that they think about. I mean, it might be the same thing. We might have multiple actresses, but one might want to be in theater. One might want to be, on film. Then that creative might be musical. Well, who knows? It matters to each of us, the why. The why is the powerful thing. So it's sort of what comes first, right? The chicken or the egg, the cart before the horse. What's wrong here? Let's get this in order. So I believe that we have to beware. This is my last point here. We have to beware of trying to trump what matters to someone by being overly motivational or inspirational in a different direction. See what I'm saying here? And that to yourself. Don't try to trump what matters. So in other words, if a kid wakes up one day and says, I want to be an actress, right? Your perception might be that, not everybody needs to be famous. I just want to be an actress. I'm not talking about fame. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about making a living as an actress because that's what I want to be. So we don't go in and motivate that person and expect to motivate them. First of all, this is the strange thing about motivation. Well, you've got to be pragmatic. Parents do this. We're overbearing if we don't believe for ourselves that that's possible. So here's this goal that's possible. There are actresses out there every single day of the week that have been in, since acting was a thing forever, and they made their living that way. But yet we're going to motivate this person to steer off the course of their why. That's a tragedy. And if we are that figure of authority and we keep beating this why out of them and we think that's motivational, hey, you've got to go to a good school, you've got to get a good job and be secure and lock yourself into mental prison the rest of your life. Huh? But that's what we're doing when we're not considerate of the real reason why. And then we're trying to inspire them beyond that, right? The process. We're trying to help them in that process of constant stimulation to continue to do that thing. See, that's what I like. You have a reason for being motivated to move in the direction of being an actress, but you have to continually be inspired because it's a process. See that? Motivation has to do with a reason for acting this way. Inspiration is constant. It's a process of being mentally stimulated to continue on and keep going. But at the fundamental base of all this is why that matters to that person, because that motivation and why are connected in the reason word. And then the process is long and drawn out. It's lifetime. It's lifetime. But yet so many people will trump what matters to that person by believing they're doing the right thing. By the way, for all of you business people that might be listening to this, the business practical application, for example, I spend a lot of time in the real estate business, in my coaching side of the business, and in my business for that matter, trying to teach telemarketers to not be overly motivational or inspirational for a person that has no reason why they want to move inside the next 6 months. They want to move inside the next 12 months max. See what I'm saying? So many people in business are trying to overly motivate. In other words, I'm going to give you a reason. What if I could give you top dollar for your house right now? Well, I don't know. So what? I don't want to move, right? See what I mean? There's no why there. What if I could do this? What if I could do that? Me goes the story, right? So even in business, we're trying to be overly motivational and inspire people to get into the process with us to do this thing that they don't even have a why for. You see the business failure that happens? So it's not only from a parental standpoint or a mentoring standpoint that you might be pushing people who don't have a why. It's very pragmatic in business too. It's a fascinating subject here, right? So when you hear all these, I think Simon Sinek spent a lot of time on, I know he did, right? Start with why, but that was even confusing to me. A little bit the way he talks about it, but I get it. The why is the reason for stimulating the process, or I say inspiring the process. The why motivates me as a reason for moving in a particular way, and then the inspiration keeps me fueled to keep going in that direction. Because it matters to me. It's the thing I so desperately want from my life. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't mean that there aren't other people who are motivated for the same reasons and they're all acting in the same way. It doesn't mean that I don't want coaches and mentors to continuously help me be inspired. But if it doesn't start with us, if we don't have a real reason why we're doing things, then we can't self-motivate. We can't self-inspire. And the more I look at motivation, it's more like a definition. Am I even starting with the right why? The why is the reason for acting a particular way. So it's more I'm motivated because my why matters. Inspiration does seem to be self-inspiration, seems to be the process of going and getting that why to become real. All the while being aware of the fact that others mistakenly, by accident, might try to be trumping what matters to you by trying to motivate you, give you reasons for acting in a different way, inspiring you to move in a different process. And that might just well kill you. I mean, kill your heart, kill your spirit. So let's go back through these points. Is motivation a myth? Well, in isolation, certainly the answer is yes, because it can fall flat. Why? First of all, let's look at the definition. Motivation is the reason or reasons for acting a particular way. 2, inspiration is more interestingly the process of being mentally stimulated to continuously do and act that particular way. But it's all predicated on the third point, why. If you don't have a why, which means does the thing that you're trying to do even matter to you? That's where this starts. And then being aware that you and others might be trying to trump what matters by being overly motivational or inspirational in the wrong direction. Let me summarize it this way. Many of us spend time trying to find an external force that motivates and inspires us into taking action steps that lead us to a better life. The truth is that unless we have a real reason personally why we want or need to do anything in particular, we may find that motivation and inspiration fall flat and don't work. However, when there's a real meaningful why, motivation and inspiration, the process, might be the perfect fuel for the engine that you need to get that goal achieved. All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get moving in a better direction because we take the notes from each episode and we post them at freethinkingtools.com. Also, don't forget you can subscribe, of course, to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen, or find us on any of our social media channels for the bonus section, and you won't miss out on the episodes. We'd also appreciate, of course, join our mission of becoming people for others and share this content if you think it matters to somebody else. I'll leave that to you. But remember this, I sign off the same way every single time. Nobody's coming for you. Nobody. So go get to work on a plan for your life, and we'll see you in the next episode to help you do just that. Thanks again.